on, guys? Want to do a couple videos, this being the first of one, talking about offshore fishing and one of the reasons why, myself anyway, why I like it so much and why I do it so much. You know, first off, it's not always going to be the thing to do. We all know that there's fish that consistently are on the bank. One thing about offshore that sometimes is an advantage to fishing the bank is that you run a chance of finding groups or schools more often out here than on the bank. You know, you might have to peck and cover a lot of water to find, especially if you're fishing tournaments, those five fish. So, but I'll say that offshore isn't always the best thing, because there's times when I've come out and I've found schools, but those schools are like they're all 2 pounders, maybe a 3 here and there, but there just doesn't seem to be any larger fish in the school. So, you know, if you're fishing a tournament, still use that to your advantage. You know, get those 5 fish quick, and then you might have to go to the bank and start working some laydowns or some grass or whatever that's up along the bank. So I'm not saying that I always just come out and start fishing offshore, but for me, the reason why I started is because I came out, was fishing my huck fin boat, and I was testing out a new crankbait, and I was just kind of casting it out, checking out the action of it, and I got bit, and it was a heavy 4. So I was like, all right, cast out again, still working that crankbait, trying to get that crankbait down. Got hit again. This time it was a 5 something. Saw where I was casting, cast it out again, and this time it was another 4. So, you know, it kind of, the light came on for me, and I was like, huh. So I went back, did a whole bunch of research trying to look up stuff about fishing offshore, whether it's ledges, humps, and that's the other thing too. You know, offshore can be a whole bunch of different things. It can be the same stuff that you're fishing on the bank. I mean, if the creek channel swings up near a point, you know, or runs up close to the bank, that's out here what I'm fishing. But there's humps out here, there's rock piles out here, there's a couple trees that I guess I just left standing. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you still would fish even if you were on the bank. It's just you don't see it as much out here, and that's where you kind of got to get your confidence down. But back to what I was saying, you know, after I had that experience drifting off with my huck fin boat, I was actually at another lake. I came out here, and I didn't have any electronics. I had a cheap fish finder which did depth, but that was it. No type of mapping system or GPS at all. And with the paper map, I was able to get out here, find an area where, you know, I looked and saw where the creek channel had a good bend in it, and it also looked like there was some type of farm pond or something relatively close to it. So I came out, and within 5 minutes, I got a 5-pounder. And then I caught a couple 3s. So that was it for me. It was like a no-brainer. I was like, this is what I want to do. This is the way I like to fish. I had already gone through fishing the bank and was just, I mean, had zeroed so many times doing that. And I'm not saying that every time you come out, you're going to catch those nice fish or catch. But it's just another tool. It's another style, you know, whether you want to look at it as like crankbait fishing, jig fishing, shaky head. Well, all those things that you do can be applied in a different area of the lake. And so it is really about finding out where the fish are, because, as I said before, it's not necessarily always the best place to fish. So what I'm saying is, you don't have to have the best of the best to be able to. Does GPS and graphing and maps, it definitely helps. It definitely helps, because then you can look at it and you can pretty much boat to it. But like what I was saying was, with my huck fin boat, what I did was, once I got to the creek channel, I'm looking at it on my map. I'm referencing whether it's islands or, you know, other areas, things in the foreground of where I believe this area in the creek channel is going to be. And so I started zigzagging, and I'm zigzagging, and, you know, I'm watching when I dip down and watching where it comes up. I use marker buoys sometimes to, you know, if there was a long run and then it had a bend in it, well, I was using a marker buoy to tell me where that bend was, and I'd come up and work that creek channel. And, you know, if you can see how deep you are, then, you know it comes up to 5 feet on both sides of the bank. Well, then you're going to try and stay in 10 feet of water. And you do have to watch your fish finder then to see when it starts rising. But if it's a straightaway, or, you know, if the creek channel is fairly running straight, when you're in it, use your background, use your foreground. I mean, whether it's a specific tree, the top of a tree, a power tower, another cove, whatever. Something on that bank, if you've got reference to the bank, that's going to help you line up. And I say use your foreground and your background, because if you're just sitting there, if you're working a spot, you know, you can start to twist and it'll throw you off on that spot. So you need to have, you know, you need to line up on something so that there's some type of axis where your boat sits on and you know you're in line with it. Otherwise, you could swivel, whether you're anchored or not, you could swivel off. So, you know, once you know where it's at, and the other thing you're going to use is your rod or your lures. You know, with this crankbait, a jig, a worm, you're going to be casting out, trying to hit whatever that structure is, whether it's just, you know, a bend in the creek channel. And I like to find stuff like a bend in the creek channel, but then it's got some stumps on it, or it's got something else other than just that bend. Or I've actually gone over it and I've seen the fish sitting there. So once you do all that, then you got to start using, you know, it comes down to, to me, there's no better tool than your actual lure, you know, for finding what you're trying to hit. You know, whether it's a stump, rocks, whatever. You start whipping those things out and trying to find them. But the biggest thing is to get bit. I mean, how many lures do we have that we've never gotten bit on, and they just sit in our crank or sit in our case, and we just never throw them? So you got to come out and realize too that you don't have to just fish one style. I love crankbait fishing. It works good on the ledges. It allows me to cover water real fast. But what I'm starting to find out is that sometimes when I'm getting on these fish, I need to have something. I need to stop and slow down and work that jig or work that worm to pull a couple more fish out of that area, because it might not necessarily be a school. It might just be a group of fish, 4 or 5 fish, and I might not be able to get everyone on the crankbait. But if I'm throwing a crankbait or I'm throwing a jig and the worm all in conjunction with each other, you know, it betters my odds of finding out really what they want, because it ain't always the crankbait as much as I'd like it to be. So I'm just telling you, definitely don't turn down the offshore option, because, you know, you've got a small boat, you don't have the electronics that you think you need. You can still do it. And while it might take a little more time doing it if you just have a fish finder, or if you don't have a fish finder, and you know, rather than if you had the Ranger boat with you know, the side view and you know, the mapping system where you could literally just map to it or boat to it and figure out where you're at, you can still do it. If I did it on my huck fin boat, I'm pretty sure you can do it on whatever boat you have. So look at it. It's another, I don't know whether to say it's a tool, but it's another style. And, you know, I'll wrap it up with the saying again, you know, it's not always the best bite, but a lot of times, because you'll find groups of fish more often than on the bank. You know, anytime, and if you've seen some of my videos, there's times where, you know, I've just stopped or I've anchored up whatever, and off of a spot, I've caught 4 or 5 fish. That's 15 pounds from that one spot. Then you can take the time, and if you want to go to the bank or you want to fish riprap and try and get that kicker fish, or even start just culling some of the fish you have, you know, it's something that you can do. So this is going to be the first one of these series of videos. The next one I'll do, I'm going to try and get like my boy and start including more actual video and stuff that I've recorded, kind of showing what I'm talking about in some of the areas that I'm fishing. Hopefully to help you out. You know, like I said, it's confidence. You go out there, all you need to do is get bit. So once you get bit, it'll all come home. And I guarantee you, it'll be something that you're not intimidated about, or that you even just realize, you know, why it's an asset. So until then, I'll talk to you guys later.